So, you're on a bulk, but in reality, you're not. You're just getting fat. And while that might sound harsh, it's true. Because I know, I've done this myself before, I'm not one to judge. But in this video, what I'm going to do is explain to you how you can gain more muscle and less fat when you're bulking. So a lot of people in the fitness industry would have you believe that you need to eat like 5,000 calories a day to gain muscle. And while it's true you do need to be in a calorie surplus, more calories doesn't necessarily mean more muscle. It doesn't quite work like that. There's only so much muscle that your body's going to build, and that excess energy, well, it has to go somewhere, doesn't it? And especially as natural lifters, there's only going to be so much muscle that we can actually build. If you're gaining 1 or 2 pounds on the scales every single week, well, the reality is that most of that isn't going to be muscle. And I learned that the hard way back in 2017. So when I competed back in 2016, I spent about 9 months of that year dieting. So when it came to the gaining phase, I was ready for it. I couldn't wait to get on more calories. And I had heard someone talking about eating like 5,000 calories per day for gaining. And I thought that the more food I ate, the stronger I was going to get and the more I was going to build muscle. I thought after competing and after dieting down, I was going to get like this great rebound where I built tons of muscle. And I was just eating anything I could to get those 5,000 calories in. I remember like my missus was making like brownies and things like that, and I was just like shoving in anything just to get those calories up, drinking like full fat milk by the bottle, just to anything to get the calories in. And what happened is I gained all the fat back pretty quick, and the strength side of things, that didn't come back with it. So I was in a situation where I was eating more to try and build my strength back up, build some muscle, but actually I just got fat and I was still weak. So things didn't go particularly well throughout that gaining phase. And I ended up gaining a lot of fat throughout that phase. In fact, that was the heaviest I'd ever been. And then when it came to dieting down the next time, it meant that I had a really long drawn out diet. Now, I'm not going to say that I didn't build any muscle throughout that bulking phase, because I definitely did. But would I have built the same amount of muscle if I wasn't eating as much food and if I wasn't gaining as much fat? Yes, I absolutely believe I would have. And it would have made it a hell of a lot easier when it came to dieting down. So what should you actually do? Well, it all kind of starts with the reverse diet. So when you've dieted down, got yourself lean, which I would suggest most people do before starting a gaining phase, then you've got to do your reverse diet properly. And this is something I've made a video on before. I'll put a link somewhere on the screen so you can click right to it right now. But I'd recommend watching that video where we go through step by step what you need to do to reverse out of a diet. But if you get your reverse right, then that's going to put you in a really good position, because when you're dieting, obviously food's going to get low, the amount of calories you burn is going to get lower and lower. But when we reverse properly, we start to build those calories back up, and your body starts to burn more calories as we build back up if it's done properly. So we can end up in a position where we're still relatively lean, we're eating a lot of food, and that's a really good place to be for going into a gaining phase, because again, the leaner you are at the start of that phase, the more longevity you've got in the gaining phase. Because ultimately, if you start a gaining phase and you're holding a bit of body fat and then you maybe gain a little bit more, it's not going to be long before you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you're not really happy with how you're looking, and you're going to want to give up. So when we're doing things properly, when we're doing our reverse properly, that puts us in a position where we've got more energy, we're eating more food, we're staying lean, and we're getting stronger. What's not to like about that? And then that's when we can sort of enter a surplus. I mean, it becomes a bit of a borderline, because as I say, the body starts to adapt so well with the food that you're putting in. So where maintenance and reverse dieting ends and where bulking begins, it's quite a blurred line, but that's, in my opinion, a good thing. And I've done this with one of my clients, James, not so long ago. He finished dieting on 1,800 calories, and we've now pushed him up to 3,000 calories a day, and he kept getting leaner and leaner as we pushed those calories up, because we've done it right. And now he's in a position where, as I say, he's building more muscle because he's getting stronger week after week, he's eating enough food, he's resting well, and obviously he's putting on muscle from there, but he's doing it all while staying lean. And that, in my opinion, is the right way to do a bulk, to do a lean bulk. And it all starts at the end of your dieting phase. But eventually, obviously, there's only so high you can push your food before that obviously fat starts to go on. And what I would do is, if I was, say, 10% body fat, I would set a range for like my maximum amount of body fat that I want to gain during that gaining phase. So maybe if I'm at 10% now, I'd say maybe 20% is as high as I want to go. I wouldn't get too far from like your lean weight, if that makes sense. Or back when I was doing more natural bodybuilding, we'd say like you wouldn't want to get like 20 pounds over stage weight, for example, because anything over that becomes quite a big job to get back off when it comes to dieting. So set yourself a range, set yourself an upper limit, and if you find yourself approaching that, you can always do a bit of a mini cut, pull yourself back, and then get back on with your gaining phase after that. And by the way, guys, if you want to know more about how to set up a proper bulk, then head over to the link in my description where my free bulking blueprint is there for you guys to download. This has everything that you need to know about bulking, how to get started, how to set your calories, what to do with your training, what to do with your lifestyle factors. It's all there. There's nothing that's been missed out. Everything that you need to know about bulking is in there, so make sure you download it. It's absolutely free. So we're in our bulk, we're staying lean, we're eating a good amount of food. But how can we tell if it's actually working? One of the main ways to make sure it's still working is by getting stronger in the gym. You know, if you're getting stronger week after week, and it might not be much, it's just micro progressions, maybe an extra rep on a set, or maybe pushing up 2.5 kilos on the load. You know, it doesn't need to be a lot, but if we're making those micro progressions week after week, it's like putting a penny in a jar. If you keep putting pennies in the jar day after day, week after week, they start to add up, and that's how we build a physique over time. And what about your weight? Should it be going up? Well, that's quite a difficult one to answer because, like, obviously as you eat more food, your weight might go up anyway because just eating more food, you've got more food in your system, more carbs means holding on to more water, which isn't a bad thing, it just happens. But what we shouldn't be seeing is any massive jumps. We shouldn't be seeing like a kilo going on every week or something like that. You know, in reality, there's no real answer to this. People will say, oh, you know, it should be £1 a month or this or that. But I've seen people who, you know, maybe gain £1 a week for a while, anyway, not continuously, and they still look as lean as they were when they were like 3 or 4 pounds lighter. So again, it depends on the look and it depends on what the scales are saying. If the scales are going up but you still look as lean as what you were, then that's fine. It's not a problem. But if the scales are going up, you're starting to look a little bit, you know, heavier around the waist, and maybe measurements are starting to go up, your trousers aren't fitting the same, well, that's a sign that we are putting on a little bit of body fat. And again, there's nothing wrong with putting on a little bit of body fat during the gaining phase. Don't be afraid to gain a little bit of fat. But obviously, it's just having that upper limit and not letting it go too far is going to be pretty important. And I'd recommend in any gaining phase to track what your weight's doing, keep an eye on it, do it daily so that you're taking an average across a period of time. I would do progress pictures. I would also take waist measurements just to double check what it's doing as well. You might want to do limb measurements too to see if you're building muscle there. I don't really believe in doing chest measurements too much because, you know, people breathe and the ribcage moves and expands, so I don't really believe in that too much, but you can always do it, but it's quite easy to get a false reading with that. But I think the main thing is just to trust the process, make sure you're making those progressions in the gym, because apart from obviously getting your food right and making sure you're eating consistently, you're eating enough protein, you're eating enough food in general, your training is going to be the main driver for building muscle. And if you're not progressing your training, if you're not training with intensity, then you're not going to build muscle. So I think that's a main thing to focus on to make sure that your bulk's working, is are you training hard and are you getting stronger over time? Okay, so what about dirty bulks? Because I'm telling you that I've done them before. I'm telling you that I've got fat during my gaining phases before. Is there a case to be made for them? Well, yeah, there is in a sense, because you know you're in a surplus, and over time you will get stronger. I know earlier I said that when I was coming out of a diet phase and I put my food up quick, I didn't like gain the strength back. I didn't gain the strength back at like a rate any quicker than what I would if I just reversed properly, if you know what I mean. I thought eating more food would make my strength come back really quick, but it didn't, okay? So I ended up in a position where I was eating more, gaining fat, and still weak, so it wasn't good. So it's going to take time after a cutting phase to gain that strength back. So doing a dirty bulk doesn't speed it up, but eventually you will get to a point that, like, especially with like pressing movements, that having more weight behind you will help you shift more weight. Some of the strongest lifts I've ever done have been when I weighed more. So when I was at my peak bulk, that's when I was getting my strongest lifts. But you know, strongest lifts on paper, the numbers were the highest. But pound for pound, I'm just as strong now, but I'm 10 kilos lighter. So again, is it relevant? Who knows? But you will certainly shift more load when you've got more body weight, there's no doubt about it. So you get stronger, you get to eat loads of food, you get to eat loads of food that you probably wouldn't usually eat, a lot of like quote unquote dirty foods. But at the same time, there are downsides to it, because eating all that food, your digestion is going to take a hit. It's highly unlikely that you're going to eat all that food and assimilate it properly and use it all properly. You probably find you're going to the toilet quite often, and you might have problems with bloating. And then like the knock-on effect of that as well is like sometimes digesting your meals and just letting them go down properly, that can be a problem. So you go into your sessions feeling a bit sick, you know, food just doesn't go down that well. You're eating big meals anyway, so sometimes that can feel a bit uncomfortable. And then that obviously has a knock-on effect into how hard you train. Think about it, if your stomach's like bloated up and you go into like a chest supported T-bar row, it's not going to feel the best, is it? Or if you're doing a set of squats and you feel like you're going to shit yourself, again, are you going to push yourself to the limits? I doubt it. The other downsides is you look at yourself in the mirror, you see that you've gained a bit of fat and you hate the way that you look. That can lead to yo-yo dieting, because people, as I say, don't like the look, so they end up saying, oh, I'm just going to cut for a wee while and I'm going to diet back down. Then they get bored of dieting, then they go back on a bulk, and before you know it, you're back and forth, and you're not making any progress with either of them. So, in summary, I think lean bulks are the way forward. I enjoyed doing the dirty bulks when I was younger. They were cool, they're fun, I'm glad I've done them, but I don't think they're essential, and I think most people get on better with a lean bulk. You're going to feel better most days, you're going to like the way you look better, you're going to digest food better, and you're going to make it easier for yourself when it comes to dieting down again. Let me know what your opinions are in the comments. Do you prefer a dirty bulk or do you prefer a lean bulk? And if you don't know where to start with bulking, remember my bulking blueprint is linked in the description. As I say, it's got everything that you need to know about bulking in there, so go download it. It's absolutely free and you won't be stuck again when it comes to bulking.